At my mother-in-law's hotel opening, she pointed toward the back. The staff table is in the back. My husband heard her. Please, Corinne, let Mom have her night. So I sat with the contractors before the ribbon cutting. The fire marshal walked in. Where is Corinne Avery? Vivian pointed toward me. This hotel cannot open without her sealed report. Adrian went pale, not because the smoke control test had failed, but because he had already told the bank it passed using a document with my seal. The lender beside him was opening that file. Before I explain what he changed, hit like, tell me where you're listening from, and share if your family ever used your expertise while treating you like staff. My name is Corinne Avery. I was 40, a licensed fire protection engineer in Columbus, Ohio, and married into a family that believed hospitality was more respectable than engineering. Vivian Vale had built her company from a 28-room motel into a regional hotel group. She was disciplined, persuasive, and obsessed with appearances. At family dinners, she talked about owners, investors, and legacy. When she talked about me, she said, "Corinne handles safety systems." That made people picture alarms, inspections, and hard hats. They never pictured the professional license behind the reports, the engineers on my payroll, or the legal responsibility attached to my seal. I had founded Aegis Fire Engineering after years of drafting plans, walking construction sites, and studying how smoke moved through buildings. My father was a union electrician. My mother managed a public school kitchen. Vivian called that background practical. She meant it was not refined. Still, she called whenever a contractor could not explain a technical problem. She asked me to review drawings on weekends, translate code requirements for investors, and reassure lenders that a project could be fixed. Then, when the room was full of people she wanted to impress, I became part of the project team instead of part of the family. Adrian understood exactly what she was doing. We had been married 7 years. He was intelligent, ambitious, and usually kind when no one important was watching. But around his mother, he became careful. If Vivian insulted me, he called it stress. If she used my expertise without credit, he called it family. If I objected, he asked me not to make things harder. His father, Malcolm, was no better. "It's only a seating chart," he would say. The seating chart was never the real issue. I respected the contractors, engineers, and operations staff at that back table. The insult was that Vivian wanted my judgment available, my signature ready, and my presence hidden. The Astor House was Adrian's largest project, if it opened on time. Everyone expected him to become the company's future president. The closer the opening came, the more he treated my license like one more project asset he already controlled. And on the afternoon of the gala, he finally asked me to risk it for the sake of his perfect night. Aegis began with 1 rented office, 2 second-hand computers, and a client list short enough to fit on a sticky note. I spent my first year drawing fire alarm layouts at night and walking construction sites before sunrise. I inspected stairwells, tested emergency power, watched smoke control demonstrations, and learned that the most dangerous failures were rarely dramatic at first. A mislabeled wire, a door that closed 3 seconds too slowly, a fan that turned the wrong direction. Small mistakes became deadly only when everyone assumed someone else had checked them. Over 12 years, Aegis grew to 14 employees, including 6 licensed engineers and 3 commissioning specialists. We worked across Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. Our annual revenue reached about $4.1 million. Clients trusted us because we documented failures honestly, even when they hated what honesty cost. That sounded impressive to Vivian. What she never understood was that every sealed report carried risk. If I certified a system that had not passed, I could lose my license, expose my company to a professional liability claim, and place occupants in a building that could fail during a fire. My signature was not ceremonial. It was a legal statement that the system had been installed, tested, and accepted according to the design. The city did not rely on me alone. The fire marshal performed her own review, and the building official issued the certificate of occupancy. But they required my final sealed acceptance report before completing those approvals. The Astor House contract had been structured carefully because I was married to Adrian. Aegis did not receive the work through a family favor. The project architect invited 3 firms to submit proposals. The owner's representative and construction lender reviewed our fee. A separate peer reviewer checked my design. My relationship to the Vale family was disclosed in writing to the city. Our contract was worth $462,000 over 28 months and covered fire alarm design, smoke control analysis, coordination reviews, commissioning support, integrated testing, and the final acceptance report. Adrian represented the owner. He could question costs, schedules, or documentation. He could not order me to change a technical conclusion. I had explained that distinction more than once. He always nodded as if he understood, but as the opening approached, he began calling my sealed report the last piece of paperwork. It was never paperwork. It was the line between what the project hoped was true and what the testing proved. On opening day, that line failed at exactly 2:43 in the afternoon. The Astor House was a $48.2 million conversion of a department store built in the 1920s. 9 floors, 126 rooms, a 4-story atrium, a ballroom for 320 guests, a rooftop restaurant, a spa, and underground parking. For Vivian, it was proof that Vale Hospitality had entered the luxury market. For Adrian, it was the project that could make him the company's next president. For me, it was a complicated adaptive reuse building with old shafts, new mechanical systems, and a smoke control sequence that had to work exactly as designed. The opening gala was scheduled for that evening in a temporary courtyard pavilion with its own permit, exits, and electrical inspection. That meant the dinner could continue even if the hotel itself could not open. The plan was simple: cocktails outside, ribbon cutting at 7, then tours, ballroom access, and the first VIP check-ins at 2 that afternoon. We began the final integrated test. A detector in the atrium simulated smoke, the alarm activated, elevators recalled, fire doors closed, exhaust fans started pulling smoke upward while supply fans pressurized the stairwells and exit corridors. Then the pressure reading in the west corridor dropped. Damper D17 on the 3rd floor had been wired backward. When fire mode activated, it opened instead of closing. That meant simulated smoke was being pulled toward an evacuation route. It was one component, but one reversed damper could turn an exit corridor into the path smoke followed. I stopped the test. At 2:43, I signed the report. Failed final acceptance, withheld pending correction and retest. The contractor believed the wiring could be corrected quickly. Adrian wanted to continue as though approval were delayed paperwork. At 3:07, I emailed him. Vivian, the architect, and the project team. Hotel occupancy cannot be approved until correction and full retest. Adrian replied directly to me. We'll resolve the technical issue after tonight. Please bring the signature page. I read that sentence twice. He knew the system had failed. He knew the city could not approve occupancy. And he still expected me to sign first because the gala, the investors, and his promotion mattered more than the order in which truth was supposed to happen. I printed his email and placed it behind the failed report. Then I changed for dinner and drove to the pavilion. Vivian saw the folders in my hand. She did not ask whether the exit corridor was safe. She looked at my dress and asked whether I had anything more appropriate for family photographs. By the time I reached the pavilion, the courtyard glowed with chandeliers and lights. Investors stood near the champagne wall. Reporters photographed Vivian beside a gold ribbon bearing the Astor House logo. I carried my laptop bag and 2 folders, the failed test report and Adrian's email asking me to bring the signature page. At reception, the coordinator searched the seating chart twice. I'm sorry, Mrs. Avery, you're at table 18. She pointed toward the back. The card read operations, contractors, and vendors. Vivian appeared before I could respond. The staff table is in the back, she said. I looked at her, then at the family table near the stage. Am I here as Adrian's wife, or only as the engineer whose signature you still need? Her smile tightened. The family tables are for owners, investors, and board members. Tonight, you're part of the project team. Adrian walked over in time to hear her. I waited for him to correct it. Instead, he lowered his voice. Please, Corinne, just let Mom have her night. We'll fix the seating after the ribbon cutting. That sentence told me everything. He wanted my seal close enough to save the opening, but me far enough away to miss the family photographs. I sat at table 18 beside the superintendent, electrical foreman, assistant architect, and 2 hotel operations staff. They were the people who had built the place. The humiliation was not sitting with them. It was watching Vivian use their table as a warning about where she believed I belonged. At 6:50, Vivian moved toward the stage. Adrian joined her beside the ribbon. Then Fire Marshal Judith Park entered with building official Raphael Boone. Vivian greeted them and gestured toward the front. Judith did not move. "Where is Corinne Avery?" Vivian glanced toward me. "She's seated with the project staff." Judith followed her gaze. "Then this hotel is waiting on the staff table." The courtyard went silent. Judith continued, "We still do not have the sealed smoke control acceptance report. Without it, I cannot issue final fire approval. And Mr. Boone cannot release the certificate of occupancy." Raphael nodded. "No guest check-ins, no ballroom use, no interior tours." Every face turned toward Adrian. Vivian's expression changed. "You told me everything passed." Adrian went pale. I carried the folders forward and placed the failed report on the podium. "The test failed at 2:43, I said. Damper D17 opened when it should have closed. The west exit corridor lost pressure." Vivian stared at the page. "This is all because of one damper. One reversed damper can turn an exit corridor into the path smoke follows." She lowered her voice. "Can't you sign conditionally so we can finish the ceremony, number Corinne? Everyone is watching. A signature does not make the system pass. It only makes me responsible for pretending it did." For the first time, Vivian had nothing to say. Then Harriet Moss, the lender, rose from the investor table and opened a folder. "Then I have a different question," she said. "Why did the bank receive a sealed document yesterday saying life safety approval was complete?" Harriet placed the document beside my failed report. The first page carried my company logo, signature, and professional seal. Vivian touched the paper. "Corinne, this says the design complies." "It does. That is not the same as saying the installed system passed." The title read, "Design Conformance Progress Letter." It had been issued 6 weeks earlier, before final testing. The second paragraph stated that field acceptance remained incomplete. The final sentence said it could not authorize occupancy, but in the package sent to the bank. The file had been renamed Final Life Safety Approval. Harriet looked at Adrian. "Your cover email said all life safety approvals were complete." Adrian straightened his jacket. "The design was approved. Today's failure was a minor installation issue. A minor issue that sent simulated smoke toward an exit." I said. He looked at me as though honesty were betrayal. "I was trying to protect the project." "No. You were protecting the opening." I placed my phone on the podium and opened the email chain. At 3:07, I had written that occupancy could not be approved until correction and full retesting. At 3:12, Adrian replied, "We'll resolve the technical issue after tonight. Please bring the signature page." Harriet read it silently. Vivian's face hardened. "You knew it had failed." Adrian glanced around the pavilion. 90 employees were scheduled to begin work. Guests had flown in, investors were here. I believed Corinne could issue a conditional approval. "You did not ask for a conditional report. You asked for the signature page." He lowered his voice. "I knew you would not let one fixable problem destroy everything. My license is not your contingency plan." Malcolm stepped forward. "Surely we can separate the ceremony from the technical matter," Raphael answered. "The ceremony is not the issue. Occupancy is." Harriet closed the bank file. "The final draw of $3.6 million is on hold. We need the certificate of occupancy, a corrected package, an independent confirmation that no preliminary document was represented as final." Vivian turned to me. "Can you sign with conditions tonight and complete the retest tomorrow?" "You are asking me to convert a failed test into a successful one with ink. Do you understand what this delay will cost?" "Yes." "Then why are you doing this?" "I am not doing this." The system failed. Beatrice Flynn, the hotel's general manager, stood. I would rather relocate 63 guests than explain why we placed them in a building that failed an exit safety test. Patrick, the general contractor, nodded. We can inspect the entire damper group tonight. I laid out the corrective plan. All 36 smoke dampers would be checked. The electrical subcontractor would verify every actuator and label. The system would undergo a complete pretest. The peer reviewer and Judith would witness the final retest. The bank would receive corrected records. I would sign the moment the system passed. Adrian stared at me. You could save tonight. You used my preliminary report to tell the bank the hotel was approved. Then your mother seated me in the back and expected me to sign the lie before dessert. The ribbon cutting was canceled. Dinner continued. But there were no tours, ballroom reception, or check-ins. Staff moved VIP reservations while investors left through the courtyard. I did not stay to watch Vivian's evening collapse. I returned to the mechanical floor with Patrick and the electrical crew, and for the first time. No one could blame me quietly. The hotel had not been delayed by the woman at the staff table. It had been delayed by the man at the family table who believed her signature could arrive before the truth. The repair took 12 days. Patrick's crew found that D17 had been wired backward. 3 other actuators carried incorrect labels, and one damper closed too slowly to meet the sequence requirements. No single mistake had caused the entire failure. The danger came from how easily small errors had been accepted as finished work. The electrical subcontractor corrected the wiring. Every one of the 36 dampers was inspected. Aegis ran a full pretest before Judith, Raphael, and the independent peer reviewer returned. At 3:18 on the 12th day, the system passed. I signed the final sealed acceptance report immediately. The Astor House opened the following morning. The delay cost Vale Hospitality about $286,000 in relocated guests. Refunds, transportation, overtime, retesting, and rescheduled marketing. The project did not collapse, but Adrian's position did. The board reviewed the package he had sent to the bank, my email warning him that occupancy could not be approved, and his request for the signature page after the failed test. They also interviewed Harriet, Patrick, and Beatrice, each of whom confirmed that Adrian had treated final approval as a formality rather than an unresolved safety requirement. They removed him as lead developer, suspended his authority over technical submissions, and placed future projects under independent compliance review. His expected promotion disappeared. That night, Adrian came home angry. "You could have saved the opening," he said. "You are asking why I did not save the lie you built with my name. I never asked you to put anyone in danger. You asked me to sign before you knew whether they were safe. That is the same decision with better wording." He said I was punishing him for the seating arrangement. I told him the table had only revealed the truth. He wanted my expertise available, my signature ready, and my judgment silent. When his mother humiliated me, he protected her evening. When his document misuse was exposed, he blamed me for refusing to complete it. I moved into a furnished apartment 2 days later. For 3 months, Adrian described what he had done as protecting employees, investors, and the family company. He never called it deception. So I filed for legal separation. I did not leave because Vivian seated me with the staff. I left because my husband wanted me invisible until someone needed to carry the liability. The hotel eventually recovered. Our marriage did not. And the person who surprised me most afterward was not Adrian. It was Vivian. When she finally contacted my office without asking for another direct family favor ever again. 1 year later, the Astor House was operating at full occupancy. There had been no smoke control incidents, no emergency shutdowns, and no lawsuit tied to the opening delay. Beatrice ran the hotel well. Adrian resigned from his executive role and our separation moved toward divorce. Aegis kept every license, client, and city relationship that mattered. Judith later invited me to speak on an industry panel about integrated testing under pressure. Vivian contacted my office 6 months after the opening. She did not call my cell phone or ask me to take a quick look. She sent a formal email. "Please let us know whether Aegis would like to submit a proposal for our next hotel renovation." I forwarded it to business development. No family discount, no private favor. No revenge, only process. Vivian never apologized for the staff table, but she finally stopped pretending my work belonged to her family. My mother-in-law thought class was determined by where she seated me. The city only cared whose signature carried the responsibility. Would you have stayed to help fix the hotel after being humiliated, or walked away that night? Comment below, subscribe, and stay for more family betrayal and clean revenge stories.